Returning to the creation account, we find that there were many layers within this ice canopy that fell in rapid succession. The earlier layers were composed of ice mixed with minerals and rock. These fell onto the hot surface of the earth. The resulting chemical reactions helped produce our atmosphere. As this process continued, the surface of the earth cooled, the earth's crust thickened, surface water became more abundant, and continents emerged and oceans were formed. Genesis chapters 7 and 8 speak about the fountains of the great deep, the windows of heaven, and the rain. All three are different, but all three are related. When we reach Noah's day, the remaining canopy was of pure water only, in the form of ice. This was the sole remnant of the great deep. The windows of heaven were the polar channels through which the broken canopy was deposited in the form of millions of cubic miles of super-cold ice. The term window is peculiar and significant. It suggests that a relatively small portal existed through which the fountains of the great deep deposited their contents. The fact that this term is plural supports the thought that both north and south polar regions were involved. The 40 days of rain was caused by the sudden extremes of hot and cold. This condition did not exist prior to the flood. As we read in Genesis 2:5, the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth. From this we understand that the rain did not cause the flood, but was merely incidental to the falling of the ice canopy. This brings us to another aspect of our subject, Noah's Ark. The experience of the Apostle Thomas led to the proverb, "Seeing is believing." Truly, some things are difficult to comprehend without a visual aid. For that reason, we would like to take advantage of another aspect of the restitution blessings of computers and electronic communication. We are going to travel back to Noah's day and examine the ark during its construction phases. The Bible is not clear as to exactly where Noah built the ark or what the surroundings were like. We have chosen a peaceful seaside setting, though in reality it is more likely that the ark was built further away from water. The fall of the canopy would have created monstrous tidal waves. Being further away from the shore would have reduced the initial impact of the first wave. Since the Bible does not give us much detailed information on the construction of the ark, what we have to offer is based on personal research, careful analysis, and deduction. A series of articles from Bible Study Monthly of England was also very helpful in forming opinions on a number of points. These thoughts are merely suggestions. Our purpose is to demonstrate that such a project was feasible and practical. It matters little if other methods were used. We only wish to show one possible method in order to vindicate the Genesis account and to give an answer to higher critics. With such an immense construction project as this, the first task for Noah and his sons would probably have been the preparation of the site itself. Just as it was necessary to prepare the platform level before the construction of the Great Pyramid could begin, so too we believe the same was done before construction began on Noah's Ark. In fact, we believe that many of the same principles used in constructing the Great Pyramid may very well have been learned by Shem when he was assisting in the construction of the Ark. We will discuss some other connections between the Great Pyramid and Noah's Ark as we proceed through this lesson. To begin the project, a large rectangular area would have been cleared and leveled. It is likely that the base of the ark was built first. Waterproofing material would have been applied to the underside as the floor was constructed. A beveled retaining wall with corner sockets like the Great Pyramid may have been used around the perimeter of the base. This would have served several purposes. Most importantly, it would have relieved stress on the joinings of the sides and base created by the weight of the structure. Incidentally, such stresses would not have existed once the ark was afloat. Such a perimeter wall would have also defined the dimensions of the ark before construction even began, thus providing a useful project boundary. Construction materials would have been gathered, finished, and stored until needed. This phase could have commenced many years or even decades before construction itself began. It is important to remember the conditions that existed before the flood. The entire planet was bathed in tropical warmth due to the hothouse conditions under the canopy. Plant growth was much larger and more uniform than at present. Finding the huge trees necessary for the beams and crossbeams of the ark would have been a much easier task than today. Preservation of the wood itself was of less consequence, since the processes which cause fermentation and other similar forms of decay did not exist before the flood. Just as God instructed Moses in the building of the tabernacle and Shem in the construction of the Great Pyramid, we believe he also instructed Noah in the techniques necessary for constructing the ark. The task of cutting, finishing, transporting, and finally raising huge beams into place would have been a much simpler task than was necessary to construct the Great Pyramid. The use of simple mechanisms such as levers, ropes, pulleys, and ramps would have been adequate for Noah's Ark. The Great Pyramid was most likely constructed during a period of 30 years, between 2170 BC and 2140 BC. The suggestion drawn from Genesis 6:3 that God told Noah to build the ark 120 years before the flood seems like a reasonable inference. However, this would have been before his sons were born. Nevertheless, from other indications, Noah was probably a wealthy and influential man, and may have used his wealth and influence in gathering and preparing materials before Ham, Shem, and Japheth were old enough to assist.